Okay, so we were approached last week by a new client to look at his UK pension transfer. So this is a case study which hopefully will demonstrate some value to you. In short, there's 3 UK pensions that he transferred in 2009. The value at the start was slightly over 250, I think it was 253, but we'll say £250,000 pension transfer. Hidden costs is his concern, which are impacting performance. So let's just go back to the beginning. The client had 3 pensions in the UK, and he was advised, I think for good reason, to transfer those offshore. Now, back in 2009, the options both for the client and the advisor were really quite limited. That's very different to today. So I'd consider this to be very old-fashioned advice, but relevant to when it was done. But it should have been changed by now. I was somewhat surprised to find this still in the marketplace. So 3 UK pensions transferred into a PPB, so a personalised portfolio bond, abbreviated PPB. These are typically provided by insurance companies. How do you know if you've got one? Well, look at your valuation. If you see a company name there, such as an insurance company, then you probably have a portfolio bond or a personalised portfolio bond. It's a wrapper, a holder that sits offshore, typically in a location such as Isle of Man or similar. The product really is not for pensions. What they're for is for forward tax planning, typically for people returning to the UK. So they serve no purpose, in my mind, to a pension transfer other than generating incomes and revenues for the people processing and managing. So we need to drill down in this and give you a bit of history. So we said there's 3 pensions being transferred. We said that they were transferred to a PPB that was based in the Isle of Man. And we said, of course, that the amount was 250 000, and it was 2009 to 2020. Client suspects hidden fees are his problem. So let's break down this PPB and see what's under the lid. So let's look at the charges. So PPB charges, one of the main ones is a annual policy fee. On this one, as with many others, that's 1.1% of the amount invested. So that's pretty simple. Year 1 charge is 2750. Then they have a admin charge, which is £100 per quarter. So first year charge, £400. Then we have a plan fee, also by the PPB, only £10 per month, so that equates to £120 per year. Then what we have is a fairly new addition to pension management. It's called an AUM charge. That's where the advisor has levied an additional fee on top of the structure, typically of 1%, to give investment advice. Fairly new in the marketplace, but we're certainly here on this one. That's 1% of the pot. So in year 1, that would equate, of course, to £2,500. Then we've got to look at really inside the portfolio bond. That's the structural charges. The pattern of investments on this pension pretty much repeated themselves with different changes, but pretty much the same. And it was broken up as follows. So there was some 25% in structured notes, typically issued by banks or financial institutions, fixed returns, sometimes unknown outcomes, sometimes known outcomes, and then 75%, there was a small amount of cash, and then the balance was mutual funds. Pretty simple. That was the structure that repeated itself over the last 11 years. Okay, so let's look at how that pans out with regard to costs. So in the first instance, we're going to look at the mutual funds. So mutual funds represent 75% of the pot, give or take. Now, with mutual funds, a slight side note here, when you're looking at a mutual fund fact sheet, there's all the blurb, but then somewhere it says 1.5% management charge on there. Perfectly reasonable to assume that's the total cost, but in fact it's not the case. What you need to be looking for on a fund fact sheet is the TER, which stands for Total Expense Ratio. So that's the total charges that a fund management company can take out of a fund over and above the 1.5% management charge. In this example, the TER, so that's the fund management charge plus the other charges, equated to 2.5% per annum. So we're talking 2.5% per annum of 75% of the pot. So the fund management charge, or the mutual fund charges, actually equate to 4,687 for year one. Then we've got to look at the structured note charges. If you recall, we've got 75% mutual funds, etc., and then 25% structured notes. So structured notes, quite clever items, difficult to see what the real costs are, but typically they pay the advisor and the brokerage about 5%. That 5% has got to come from somewhere. It will come from your money or your investment. So 5% of the structured note charges means that out of your pot in year one, 3,125 was taken. Other things that you need to consider is, of course, things like trustee charges. You can't do a pension without one. Trustee charges, as the market has developed, have come down. This one was pretty average, so it has been changed. Annual trustee charges are £400. Other charges to consider, which I won't note for the simplicity reasons at the moment, are things like dealing charges. So each time you buy sell, there's an additional charge, and then currency exchange, any profit taken by the FX company within the portfolio bond. So let's look at what these charges equate to. We've got a PPB policy fee, 1.1%, admin charge, plan fee, AUM, that's the one that the advisor has laid on top for investment advice. The real fund management charges, so that's the TER 4687, structured notes at 3125, and the trustee charges at 400. Okay, so the total cost in year one for this guy is 15,388. That's his fees. Structured notes, they're quite oblique. They might run for 3 years, they might run for 5, they might run for 7, they might run for longer. It's difficult in this exercise really to portray the different costs one might experience over an 11-year period. So for ease of mathematics, I'm just going to remove that temporarily and take that out. And that means we're working with a nice, easy year one cost of £12,000. It will be more because you've got the structured note charges and dealing charges, etc. But just for the sake of this example, let's say we're working at £12,000. Well, if you recall, we have a period of time of 2009 to 2020. So that's 11 years in total. So of course it's 11 times 12,000, which of course gives us total fees of £132,000. So it's not difficult to see what the problem is with this particular structure. It's the hidden fees which are affecting the performance. Okay, quite simple. So what we're going to do with this particular client is we're going to work with him, close guidance, educate him and assist him in quite simply stripping out the unnecessary products, services, additional charges, all the things that he really does not need. So that's pretty much everything. But we're going to work with him. We're going to, hold his hand and take him through that entire process. And we've done it before. We believe quite confidently that we're going to reduce his total charges, that's for the whole thing, everything included, down to 0.8% per annum. That means, of course, that he is going to have an annual cost of £2,000 per year versus the situation at the moment where he's being charged £12,000 a year. The good news is that there's some 10 years left to retirement for him. So going forward, rather than paying another £132,000 in fees, he will of course be paying £2,000 a year for 10 years is of course £20,000. So he will be saving, that's quite easy, 112, he'll be saving £112,000 in fees, which means he's going to have a much better retirement. So, I think to be fair to the advisor, in 2009, there was limited options. I think it was a good idea for him to transfer the pension, but I think the market's moved on. So this isn't something we expected to see in 2020, but there it is. So if you have anything that resembles that, looks a bit like that, or might be that, do remember that our offer to BDDs is a discount on our investigation service, but also we will provide you a free initial consultation. And within that, we'll identify if we can bring value and save you a lot of money. I hope that's of value to you. Please do make contact if you feel we can bring value to you. Thank you.